Okay. Or on. No need for an intro or anything like that. I'm sure we can just soundbite it or whatever, man. Um, all right, bro. So, like, it's so funny because I was actually in such a similar space when it came to like the whole like coming out of the whole coaching thing. So I'm really curious to like, what was it that made you feel like you wanted to step out of it for a second and pursue different skills?
Yeah. I think I felt like I wasn't making enough money for it to feel sustainable or exciting in any way. B, I'd been doing it for long enough that felt pretty frustrating. Like if I was really new and I wasn't making any money, I'd be like, yeah, sick. But I felt like I had the knowledge or skills that could attract more, and things weren't coming together.
Hmm.
And then C, I was struggling with this thing all the time where I was like, am I doing this for me or am I actually doing it to help other people? Because I know that you have to really care about other people to help them. Like you can't listen with empathy. You can't keep creating at a consistent rate unless you genuinely give a shit about people. But the honest truth was that coaching is essentially all I've done as a main job because I sort of fell into it after just loving training. And so my entry point to it was like more of a, oh, here's a way where I get to do what I like to do and make some money by sharing what I know. It was all very like me centric. So I knew that it needed to not be me centric, but I was like, I just don't know if it honestly is like this. It's my outlet. Um, and so eventually, after trying to force this change and wanting to be more like service centered several times, and sort of just that not vibing, I don't know how, but I think with some kind of identity shift or letting go of my need for validation, something just really shifted, and I actually just became more interested genuinely in my heart in helping people and separating that somehow, compartmentalizing that from my own practice. So now I'm like pretty stoked about it, and it's working.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay, that's yeah. Um, that resonates a little bit. I mean, and you know what? I just feel like a lot of coaches in the space probably feel and experience the same thing, where it's uh, you know what? I feel like the trajectory from coaching for coaching, anyways, I would say like 60% of it was exactly that. It's like, you start with training, and then, in your own experience, in your own journey, you're upskilling, or you're, going deeper into training. You try different modalities, you try different practices, and then at some point you decide coaching or training is what you're going to pursue to make, I guess, coin. And then you're just kind of sharing from your experience, right? Or sharing from what you're learning, or your current journey, or I guess lessons that were maybe 5, 10, or 15 steps behind you, and you're just passing on that information, and then doing that to, you're presenting that to the client. And um, it's hard to have a degree of separation from that, right? Your experience to what you're offering to the client.
Mm.
As much as we want to customize it, it's always going to come from a place of bias, almost, unless you're hyper introspective about it, and you have to create that objective standpoint where, no, it has to be completely about the client and wherever they're currently coming from. But then there's also the duality of, all right, well, a lot of us is coming from the same place too. So there is an element where you have to almost recognize the similarities of something that you may recognize that you've gone through, and then applying said knowledge to that person's scenario, because you only know because you've been through that.
Mm.
So it's weird that the balance and juggle of the two, right? At least that's what I've experienced.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really interesting one, and you see people navigating it differently too. Like some people seem to, from the outside, quite readily pick a niche or pick a phase of development which might be like, say, 10 steps behind, not even 10 steps behind, but it's almost static. It's like, this is where I was at this point in my life. I've
Mm,
decided now that those are the people I'm going to help, and this is the kind of content or material that I'm going to share with them. And then other people approach it where it's like, I'm just going to keep teaching what I'm interested in almost straight after I've learned it, which is like,
Yeah,
I guess, can be like, it's easy for them to talk about and easy to market because it's so fresh.
it's
But
fresh.
then
Yeah.
the flip side of that, yeah, it's not going to be boring, but it's almost not integrated yet. So, like, where do we place ourselves in this?
100%. Yeah, it's like barely digested, and then it's just regurgitated in a matter of seconds. And yeah, I mean, there is there. I mean, there's yeah. I think it makes more sense, and there's probably a lot more impact in teaching something that you've learned 15 steps ago. Granted, you've still kept the lessons relevant to this day, because there's a quote of like, "You're best equipped to help the person that you once were." And so I feel like, yeah, there still has to probably be some degree of time in that mix. So there, there is some level of evolution in between what you've learned and I guess what you're trying to teach now. Because then, yeah, where do you create that separation of, all right, I've just learned this, or I've learned that 5 years ago, but I didn't really do much to work on that one thing that I learned, but I'm still teaching it to someone else.
Mm,
It's
mm.
like, oh, I did an ice bath once, but I'm going to preach the benefits of ice baths to people. Like,
Yeah, yeah. That's where I feel like there's a difference between needing validation and uh, getting your validation from how much you help people. So, like, if I
mm,
had one ice bath and my experience was transformational, now I want everyone to know how transformational ice baths are. I'm going to be like, you have to do an ice bath, bro. And I'll almost be like, hey, you, broken leg, ice bath. You, depression, ice bath. You, nothing wrong with you, ice bath.
dude,
But
we
it's
could we
actually
could
just
just
me.
sorry, keep going.
No, it's just me trying to get more people to fucking validate me. Whereas if we're talking about the thing that I learned, 5 years ago that was actually really valuable, then sharing that to help people and seeing that they're being helped, that's my validation, and then that's like actually useful.
100%, 100%. It's like, what's funny? We could almost replace, at least what I've been seeing a lot lately within like the health and wellness space. We could almost replace ice bath with psychedelics. That's all. Like that in that scenario that you just described. It's fucking all I've been hearing lately, man. I had one transformative experience on psychedelics, and now I know the secrets of the universe. And it's like, Jesus. All right.
100%. I'm so with you.
Dude, it's crazy. And I feel like that has been something that's really been occupying like the new age space in particular. Even with in the new age wellness. There's now like there's like it's almost like a Venn diagram between the wellness and spirituality space. I mean, that's always existed, but as of late, it's I don't know, there's some parallels.
Yeah, fuck, that's a great topic, bro. I feel yeah, definitely the same pattern happens where it's like someone has this crazy experience and they think that everyone else is going to be A, positioned to have the same value of experience, and B, everyone else needs the experience. But at the same time, when you're out here having had this ethereal crazy thing, you kind of distance yourself in a way from like the grassroots of humanity who aren't having those experiences, to the point where like it's all good for you to go play in the playground, but like are you part of this thing where we're all back on the earth like fixing our shit, and are you contributing anything? And maybe you are with your own happiness, but I see a lot of people who go super deep on psychedelics, and then they start like talking about things, or even people who spend a lot of time introspecting, they talk about shit, and it's like, I've probably done this to a great degree as well. I'm probably very guilty of this, but it just sounds like they're kind of full of shit, even though you
I
know that it's from a cool place. It's like you're just missing a layer. You're missing.
Oh, absolutely. And realizing that there's layers there. So I think that's probably the ignorance that lies within a lot of people that share in that manner. It's the fact that, um, You know what? And I feel that the biggest culprit is in this day and age, and I'm going to outright say it, it's ayahuasca. You know, people as of late that are touting, how transformative ayahuasca can be. Don't get me wrong. I believe it. I believe that it's going to be a transformative thing for you. I believe that there are a lot of people that would really benefit from whatever you would get from an ayahuasca trip. Granted that you are integrating the lessons. I feel like a lot of people experience that for what it is, and then again, like you just mentioned, there's no degree of effort to translate the lesson. It's just, oh, it's just that the generalist of everything is love, and if you can't see it, then you're ignorant. You're asleep. Whatever. Um, I feel like that's something that's plaguing, and treating it as the only path to, let's call it, spiritual redemption, right? That, oh no, ayahuasca is the way. It's gonna get you right there. Psychedelics are the way. It's gonna get you there. You need psychedelics, man, because it's going to wake you up. And it's like, God, dude, like you're asleep by saying that. Like
Yeah,
you're so drunk and you're drunk on your ego to the point where you're so ignorant now to the reality of the situation, which is people aren't going to operate um, in that same space as you. People generally don't. People are like, if anything, like, who's to say that they need it more than you did, right?
absolutely,
Because a
absolutely,
lot of
man.
people are okay with having a simple experience, but yeah, it's just.
Mm. Yeah, it's it's super interesting for me at the moment because I feel I have so much to integrate already, and so much like I have integrated. To be fair, that I can't really imagine opening my mind up to that level. Like I can. Feel like it would be a hectic ride, but I just don't know if I. Maybe it's just my personality, but I feel like I'm already. My tendency is already to float that way into like the metaphysical and shit, and that
Mm,
my work is to bring it back a little bit. Um, but yeah, maybe that's just a phase. But yeah, it's tricky. What came to mind actually was maybe it's a Western trait, maybe it's a modern trait, maybe it's a capitalist trait. Not that I'm like an anti-capitalist or anything. I'm just we try to like bite off a lot and consume a lot. Like we want more of everything, and then there's also that maybe sort of slightly guilt driven Christian Vatican thing of like redemption as opposed to like we're all spiritual in essence. Like the idea of spiritual redemption that you mentioned, it's almost like, oh, you're a sinner, but it's this subconscious pattern that maybe no one's really looking at. So, like, between the
mm,
things needing to redeem yourself, coupled with having this pattern of like consumption and being a consumer, you end up turning a psychedelic tool into something which is just a really complex, aggrandized, beautiful version of fulfilling the same fucking pattern that you're already in, you know?
mm,
And
mm,
that's a
mm.
very difficult place to escape from because you feel as though you've transcended.
Yes, yes, 100%. And I was having this conversation with my wife with Ashley this morning, and it was actually like purely about when people have the spiritual awakening or when they have some sort of a transcendent moment, right? Uh, you what's that quote? I know you're a fan of Alan Watts too. And it's that quote that's like, when a scientist looks under the microscope, he steps away and studies what he's learned, right, and integrates it. He doesn't stay underneath the microscope. Something to the tune of that. And it was like that. People will generally have that experience, and then they will be like, okay, that's it. Like, that's another checklist off. I'm now above whatever I was before, and like they treat it as permanent. And it's just a glimpse into, I guess, that underlying truth that we're all connected, where everything is love, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're not constantly revisiting that, and if you just treat that experience as, and you identify with the experience, I think is a better way to say it. When you identify, you take that on, and you're like, okay, that's now that experience is now me.
Mm,
I feel like that's where it kind of gets a little pear shaped.
mm,
It's like, you know, what are we, yeah, we were talking about this morning, and geez, like it was even, I think the topic initially was, um, do you believe in collective consciousness or unity consciousness? And in in that aspect, a lot of, I think that there's talk now within the New Age community that like it's not, like we're now transcending into a state of unity consciousness, and like a lot of people typically feel like it's a state that we haven't really been in before as a human collective, which I think is probably just an arrogant way to look at it, because I really do believe that we go in cycles, and that if we were to think of unity consciousness as a concept, I really think that it's always existed, and that we're essentially just nodes on a light board in terms of our individual consciousness and how it all pairs in with the grander picture. But it's just like, yeah, this notion that that consciousness is somewhat linear.
mm.
It's yeah, no, I just don't know if I agree with it.
That it's linear and we're somehow progressing on this scale towards like the next level, and we're all going together, and we're all like, yeah, no, I don't fuck with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we're finally gonna get there, kids. Like it's like I
Yeah.
don't think it really works
If
like that.
any,
I don't know.
yeah, dude. If anything, the longer I'm alive, the more I feel like what you think is up could actually be down, and you really don't know until you get to the next thing and reflect, and then you're like, there is no fucking direction. There's just different states and stages you can be in, and which one's better and which one's worse. We'll be careful trying to say without waiting to see. And obviously, like hindsight is a trip as well. So I don't I don't like that linear thing. I don't like the idea that there's a spiritual staircase. Um,
Yeah.
I love processes, and I love the idea of living in a direction which feels true or valuable.
Mm.
I love devoting myself to something, maybe to love, whatever, But I don't. I've just learned to be really careful, thinking that I know where that will lead, because I've
Mm.
been wrong like almost every time.
Yeah, and I feel like it's the deeper you go into it, the more wrong turns you'll realize you get, right? Like you've had. I mean, and that's for almost every researcher in the field of science.
Yeah,
um, yeah, it's just the nature of us discovering new things, and the angles in which we're looking at them. So
yeah.
I'm
And
curious. I'm
I
curious
just
to.
wanted to
Sorry,
interject
go.
super. I just
Of
like
course.
super. I hate interrupting, but at the same time, like I feel like I'm just going to be that guy who does it. Um,
No, get it.
when like being wrong often isn't wrong either, you know. Like being
Right.
wrong is that's you're integrating parts you haven't seen. Basically, that's all I want to
Mm.
say.
No, yeah, 100%. It's a different angle. And the thing is, there's still an underlying degree of truth that exists within the thing that you were wrong about. Let's say, for example, you know how we were wrong about, let's say fat being the devil, right? You know how fat used to be like the most shunned macronutrient out of the three.
Mm.
You know, there's still an element where trans fat is still bad for you, right? It's still going to clog up the arteries, et cetera, et cetera. And then carbs became the devil. But at the same, and then now I feel like it's slowly shifting to like, no, carbs are good, all right, but there's still a degree that sugar is still very much bad for you, right? So I feel like there's still underlying degrees of truth that exist within each way of the of it's just whatever angle you're looking at it.
Mm. Yeah.
So I'm curious as well, man. Like how do you feel like your coaching has changed, I guess, since you last visited it?
Well, a big one is that because I was seeking validation from my work, well, we all do. So it's not that validation in your work isn't important, but it's just, I guess, how it fits with helping people in the bigger picture. But I used to think that I needed to give everyone like my best tools to show them that I was worthy of like coaching them and that they were in the right hands. And I guess I've become more comfortable in myself and by extension more trusting that others actually do value me already and I don't have to go around fucking trying to always prove myself to them. So I've got more faith in the patience and love of others at the same time as I've found more of that for myself, which has been really beautiful. And that means that if someone uh, is just starting out in their journey, or even if someone is experienced and I'm coaching them, I don't feel I have to write this super fancy program. I'm just like, well, what's actually the most valuable thing for you? It could be something super simple and super basic, despite the fact that you're a coach too, or despite the fact that I could write a fucking 3 hour session. Maybe you just need a 10-minute one. Like, and I
Mm,
can pay a great rate for doing less work and you can feel more benefit. So
mm. I really enjoy and respect that because that just sounds like such a grounded way to look at it.
yeah, I'm still working on it, but like it definitely feels more grounded for me.
Mm. No, that's awesome. Um, has it changed the like what type of clients that you take on for that reason, or?
I I'm not sure. Actually, I think I'm probably attracting more clients at the moment who are very well developed as human beings, but newer in their movement journey,
Mm,
um,
hmm.
which is great because we can connect super deeply, which I love. But it's there's no point in me trying to do heaps of like fancy behind the scenes work for them because they just don't need or want or it's not valuable for them. Like, so I can have more of these clients, love the process, they get so much out of it too, and I'm spending less time on a spreadsheet and more time thinking about like humanity and training. Whereas before I was probably attracting more people who were very introspective and loved complexity and exploration, which has its own beauty, but in an online format of coaching, it's quite tricky to kind of program for that. And so it's a bit more stressful, and I don't know if it's that valuable.
Right. It's just I hear what you're saying there because it's almost like the level of complexity. We're such complex beings as is that you almost don't need to make it more complex. Plus, it's not like the more complex it is, the more valuable it is either.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
It's how well can you reach the end result.
Yeah, that's it. That's literally it. Hey. And then the other thing is like because we're so complex and because there are so many variables, the more you try to control for all of them, the more you're kind of kidding yourself. So like
Right.
this
Yeah.
is where this is where it comes full circle where like a lot of guys who are fantastic coaches who I actually look up to, who are doing great things, who are ahead of me in their business, and making arguably a bigger impact, they're full circle back to like, dude, if you want to fucking max out because you're feeling really good, I don't care as long as you aren't like training for the Olympics and we have this finely tuned train heading down the road. Like if you're Gen Pop, if you just want to get juicy or you love to surf or whatever, then I'm just gonna give you what you enjoy because you'll do it more, you'll love it, and even if you don't count your fucking reps, but you show up every day for 6 months, then we've won. So you have to put aside this like strength and conditioning student in your head that's trying to like get his A plus and just come back to like what's fun.
Amen to that. I was going to ask you, these days, how much of your programming and I guess your approach to your clients is, I think you semi answered it just then. How much of it is intuitive, and how much of it is, I guess, like science based?
Yeah, well, I definitely wouldn't identify a lot of it as being science based, but at the same time, it's kind of backed by evidence in that it's my intuition kind of comes from experience, like having seen things a few times. So there's this beautiful little like integration of intuition and
Mm.
science. If science is just the art of like asking questions and then seeing what tends to happen in a given set of conditions, then I don't feel like they're that different, at least for me, because I'm not doing crazy experiments with microscopes, and nor am I doing like astral readings. I'm kind of like a bit of both. Yeah.
What a great answer, dude. That's a great answer.
I remember
Yeah,
like
no, it's,
one of the great things, like way back when we were doing some work together, and like
mm,
fell in love with sort of bodybuilding style training again, and just like getting a sweet pump. That was that was really cool for me. That was like a real like light bulb permission giving moment where I was like, you know what, I think he's right. And then it took me a while, but I started to train like that as well and feel so much better.
uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, I know. And it's, I'm not sure if this resonates with you, but it was almost like when you get too funneled into a certain practice, it's almost very easy to like demonize other practices because of you almost like highlight the downfalls of other practices because you're doing this new practice here. So like when I got into like movement and calisthenics initially, I was like, oh, bodybuilding, that makes you so stiff and so like immobile. Like, like you kind of go down that thing of, oh, you know, outdated. Like, and then you come full circle eventually. And you're like, dude, it feels good because this is how I kind of fell in love with training. Like that feeling of, yeah, yeah, maybe some of it was like visual validation because you look in the mirror, you look fucking good. You're like, oh yeah, like I can see the fruits of my labor. It's very clear. And now it does kind of change over depending on what practice you are. Like, you do a half marathon, you feel you enjoy doing that too because like that's what you're doing at that point in time. I hope that makes sense, but
Yeah. Yeah, man. Absolutely. It's important to have tangible progress as well. And it's important to have gratification because gratification signals you're doing something right. So we can go the other end of the spectrum and be all about like delayed gratification and, well, you should be able to keep practicing without seeing results. But we have to be careful going too far that way because it could mean that you're just wasting your fucking time. Like,
right. And you're just like rowing the rowboat in circles. Yeah,
yeah.
100%. When we're dopamine driven, like it's embedded in our DNA. Like, who are we to forfeit that
Yeah.
completely because what we have some philosophy?
Yeah, let's throw away the thing that got us through the last fucking however many million years or whatever you believe, and just let's instead hang on to this dogma that popped up like 5 years ago because some guru was saying
Yeah,
it.
literally. Yeah, literally. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, dude. And so, all right. So Jungle Brothers, so that you said they do jujitsu, they do like movement and calisthenics work as well, and like
Yeah,
just regular gym stuff too, right?
they gave me a T-shirt. This is it, fight, lift, move. So that's
Oh,
kind of
fuck
like
yeah!
the simplified philosophy. Yeah,
That's all it needs to
it's
be. Yeah.
it covers fucking pretty much everything. Hey, it's like
So you've been practicing jujitsu lately as well?
I've done a few roles again, but I haven't been back in it for long. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's so good though.
Yeah, yeah. I've been really enjoying it.
Ooh,
Yeah,
sick.
no, it's
Have you been fairly consistent lately?
I have. I can safely say that I've been doing it for a minimum of 2 times a week since I started. So yeah, it's been really good. I've only been doing it for a year though, so like I'm not gonna talk about it too
No,
profoundly in that sense, but it's been
that's
a
fair.
very healthy experience for me. Yeah.
Mm. How have you found it? Like, have you found the experience has changed since you started? Are you getting different things out of it, or like, is your style of learning changing? You know.
Yes, I would say so massively. I would say that it it's honestly connected me a little bit more. with movement than movement has. You know, like let's. I mean, and I'm just calling it movement for the sake of just an easy categorization of being able to like perform locomotion and just you know what I'm saying. But like um yeah, it's I feel like it is you know it, it's taken away I guess the staticness of exercise in certain ways for me. Like it's there's not a practice that I've done that's had so much dynamic feedback as you're practicing it, right? So the fact that you're constantly rolling with someone and that you're like you can't predict anything. Oh, you can, 100% you can. Sorry, but you can't 100% know what they're going to do. You can bait them into work moving in a certain way, and then from there, if depending on how experienced you are, you will know the steps to take if they do this. Like your contingency plan just goes way higher, right? And but at the end of the day, it's live feedback constantly per second, and so I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. And then obviously getting your ass kicked um, in many different angles. It's very healthy, at least for me, anyways. Um, like that internal rage that comes up when I've been choked at aggressively. It's just like, and then being able to and having to navigate that too, and be like, put your fucking ego aside, man. Like it's not like as much as you want to think like, oh my god, if that was a real fight, you would have died. Like don't like throw that out the window. You're practicing. Like it's just it's a gentle roll. It doesn't really mean much other than that, you know. So that's been like I think like mentally a good experience for me too. But I've just enjoyed learning new positions, new techniques, and then like remembering to apply it when it comes up.
Mm. How are you finding like? Uh, are you more inclined to find value in free rolling and sort of improv, or are you leaning just as much on like structured tuition as you were in the beginning? Like, is that changing for you?
Structured tuition is really important because it introduces a technique in a step-by-step format where you know what to practice. If you're constantly just free rolling, then like anything, if I don't know how to if I didn't know how to do a handstand correctly and I just kept trying to do it, you'd form bad habits. So I think there's merit to getting drip fed something and then step by stepping it and then really flowing with that. And then I think a free roll, and this is I'm sure that this is the intention behind the instructors too. That the free roll is just a training ground to see how well you can apply.
Yeah,
And so if you're going in with like minimal skill set, then you're going to get your ass kicked, and it's just kind of constantly going to be the case. And you'll learn a lot more slower that way, I find. So I enjoy when they break it down to like guard passing. I like it when they break it down into all right, this is what you do from top mount, this is from what you do when you're being top mounted, and then like that first week of the month is when the free training happens, and then you're going to be up against some black belt that's going to test you. So I like the ebb and flow of how they structure the curriculum. I'm with
mm.
Gracie Barra at the moment.
Sick. Yeah, yeah. That's because I found I'm relatively new as well. I've found like I've got a couple mates who are higher belts and that they can flow more and they can open it up more and they're like, hey, feel for this, just like go with your intuition here. I'm like, I don't have one yet. Like I don't have enough of a
Mm,
kinetic library to know like like I can't just have a conversation with you yet. Basically, I
yeah,
can if
yeah.
5 minutes, but I need I benefit a lot from the structure. But it's interesting seeing how that's different from it's not different from the way I train, but it's like when I train, I'm leaning on structures without even realizing I am, and I think I'm being intuitive, but actually, like if I broke it down, there's a lot of rules that I'm following. Whereas, like I'm not,
Mm.
I'm definitely nowhere near that in jujitsu. It's still like, what are the rules?
That's such a great point. And yeah, I like that you use the analogy of a conversation because it's literally, yeah, it's a language. Like it's like anything else, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, man. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I can cut this part out, but like, I just wanted, I guess, I want to touch base with you and like how you're doing with that. I guess when you and Vanessa parted ways and stuff. But like, yeah,
Mm.
like, what did you, I guess, just like uncover from that, like, and how you been since?
Um, well, first off, it's been a bit of a new experience because like our relationship was based on a level of love or mutual understanding that I think ran deeper than any other that I've been in. So that was like a founding value, I guess, and that didn't really change for the most part, even though we went through like converging life directions, or not converging, diverging, going apart. Um,
Okay.
so like it's the most loving kind of breakup, I suppose, that I've had by miles, and that in itself, that's so beautiful because I feel like we've somehow proven to ourselves that endings don't have to be failures. But at the same time, it makes it
Hmm.
a little bit more complex to deal with because you can't put it in that push away part of your brain. You can't reflexively say, "Oh, that was bullshit," and I'm glad I walked away because it wasn't bullshit. It was absolutely beautiful, but it's maybe just not something that I'm placed well for at this moment in my life. You know what I mean? So, so in a sense, I'm really good because I feel that there's a layer of mutual love and understanding that's still there and forever will be. But in another sense, my mind is always very easy to fall into patterns of like, have I made the wrong decision because it was so good? And like, people tend not to break up unless they're having bigger issues, I would have thought.
Hmm. Hmm.
But so it's like, yeah, there's a lot of growth still to be taken from it for me, I think.
Yeah, that's tricky. It sounds like, yeah, like you said, it just doesn't, I guess it hasn't just offered the same amount of like obvious closure that exists there, you know? Um, that's probably difficult, man. Uh,
Yeah, the closure thing's actually big because like I feel I need more of a sense of closure. Um, but it's because there's a channel that's still open, like the love channel, the very
mm,
basic, like deepest layer beneath the identity layer and the human layer and the what am I doing with my life and does it line up with yours layer. There's a channel where I still want to be in touch and providing love and drawing love from that relationship. But I'm also aware that if I try to do that too soon, it might not be helpful for either of us because it's hard to separate that from the human, like, I want to be with you, Leia.
that's huge. But that's also a very mature way to look at it. The fact that you're able to see that, I guess, the difference in those experiences, because, I would say 99.9% of people would just be like, it's myself included, probably, like you just attach like love to me, it's like love is me, and like what love I give and take is me, right? Like you're obviously seeing it as, there's yeah, the human layer, and then there's an underlying current of love that you can, I guess, not even switch on and switch off, but I guess you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely layers.
What
And
what
we,
ways do you feel like you guys? Sorry.
it's all good, bro. A bit of a delay. You go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. What ways do you guys feel like you started diverging?
So Vanessa's 4 years older than me, and I think she was perhaps ready to make plans together, which I didn't feel stable enough in myself and in my basic needs to engage with. So she she's 31 at the moment. I'm 27. I don't know what
Mm.
she's doing at the moment, but she at least has been graphic designing for quite a while and kind of has a remote income from that, which has meant that she's had a basic level of security and comfort from wherever she is. Um, and when I started dating her, I really looked up to that because that was something that I wanted to build. I wanted to build the same level of freedom, uh, so that I could live that kind of lifestyle. But I felt like, as we've spoken about, financially that's been a struggle. I don't know if it is from now on. Like I feel like it's pretty good at the moment. So maybe I've kind of got past that with the relationship change too. It's kind of triggered something. But I felt like I just was too much of a boy and couldn't really entertain the idea of like, where are we going to be in the future? Are we going to settle as our friends have and potentially have kids, or like um, have shared financial or life goals like house, whatever? And I felt like it was valid and necessary and part of her path, being the age and stage she was, to want these things. And I didn't want her to not want them because she knew that I couldn't come with her yet. Didn't want that conflict in her. And for me, I didn't want to rush my process and grasp at things too far away and then miss them because there was an urgency to catch up with someone. So
Mm.
this is where
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because like there was no rush from her. There's no pressure on me. But I knew her well enough to know who I needed to be the best person I could be for her, because that's my job in that
Mm-hmm.
relationship. My job is how best can I support you and be the person who you can love. And her job to me, her commitment was the same. And so our commitments to one another meant that the best thing we could do, it seemed, would be to allow each other to explore our own journeys a little bit and see whether, given that permission, things would change. You know,
Mm.
does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And so you must have had a lot of conversations and dialogue about this with her.
Yeah, I think certain themes came up multiple times, and when things keep coming up and there isn't a clear resolution, that's a sign that there's something that you're struggling with. So for me, it's like, well, you've kind of had 4 years of living, traveling, experiencing, desiring that I haven't. Um, and as much as I love
Mm.
this, that's pretty big for me, because I feel like if I try to be good in this relationship or try to fit into this at the expense of being truly honest, then I'm just being naive. And maybe there are things that I have to live through to become the kind of man who can line up with you. But it's like, when's that going to happen? And can it happen within our relationship? Like, can I go traveling?
Yeah.
Can I go, like, blah, 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 blah?
Yeah. And good on you for being true to that, man. Like it, yeah. Who knows if you were to, I guess, conform into what you felt like you had to be in that. Like I can only imagine that there'd only be a little bit of resentment there as well, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's a real, I don't like, yeah, resentment in relationships is not, I'd like to say there's space for everything, but I don't know how much space I want for that.
That's 100%, 100%, because it will diminish the overall quality of the relationship as well.
Mm,
So yeah.
yeah, man. So it's it's a trip. We'll see where it all goes. it's it's definitely left me with
Hmm.
a super high standard of relating now, which is serving me really well and which is helping me attract people into my life
Mm.
who are so beautiful, like friends, everything. Just because
Right.
I know how relationships can go, whether they're platonic or romantic. I know that um, things don't have to crash and burn. They can be really fucking good, and you can feel a lot, and there can still be chapters that we make peace with.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. So where to from here for you, man? Like, are you going to double down on, I guess, your, so are most of your clients online or are they in person?
At the moment, everyone's online, um, and I've kind of realized that that just works like okay because I've got a lot of pre-recorded content. So if I'm stuck in my van, then I can just like share a screen, roll a video, and then we talk about it and I guide through. And that's actually less clunky than me trying to like it actually saves time, although it feels a bit like I'm cheating because I'm using tech too much.
Not at
I know,
all.
it doesn't make sense. You think this is a big thing in coaching that I'm also like working through and enjoying working through that things can be so much easier for both of you and more valuable. And so work, if you're doing it well, should get easier. Just as being coached, if you're being coached well, should feel really easy.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a compounding thing too. I mean, the more time, I mean, it's like you still put time into recording that video,
Mm.
and how like I would almost argue that it's a larger level of consistency in presenting the same video than if you were to, be privy to your mood on the day or wherever you are, right? Like in your day, in your mood or whatever. There's less variables than if you were to share a video
Yeah, dude,
in terms of consistency.
that's a really good point. Yeah, you can potentially have a higher level of quality this way.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's all online, man. Um, yeah, but I kind of miss working with people in person as well, just because it feels like the purest form of the art. It feels like yeah, just really nice.
Yeah, it's a little more cinematic.
That's it. And
Yeah.
there's touch and there's just a different level of being able to vibe someone's needs. Yeah.
Hmm.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
Like, are you doing any online coaching, or are you mainly in person? Or
I um I am actually I've got one online client right now, but to be honest with you, personal training has been like I've only just recently gotten back into it, like literally 2 months, back into it. I've yeah, and you know what, Jack, I feel like I wish I could talk to you for longer because I got a jet in like 5 minutes, but yeah,
all good?
the spark notes of it is that um a lot of what your journey was, especially on the financial aspect, I resonate with in the last year or so. And I wish I had time to share a bit more about it in a later conversation. Definitely will. But yeah, I had a few financial like struggles because of that same thing as well. And being in a new country where I'm kind of starting from scratch with uh, like a visa that was tying me to a job that was very much like limited in what I could make. And yeah, because essentially you can't work on any other job if you're on this visa. But more on that later. I was
Yeah.
able to, but yeah, I've been really trying to build myself to a comfortable level again, and I feel like I'm finally getting there. But with coaching in particular, yeah, again, I was very very grateful that this opportunity has been back in my lap, and I really enjoy the one-on-one aspect of things too. I feel like um, it's again it's a more somatic experience like you can communicate more. I feel like I'm able to communicate more in person, and I need to like my online client right now, it doesn't feel too much different, but I'm also wondering like how does it look selling programs, right? Like if you're not there to coach, if they're just buying a program, like what does that look like? How like what is the best way you can deliver that? And that I think that's probably the vehicle for that is probably like a platform like Teachable or like online course material.
Mhm.
But then there's also I feel like there's also an oversaturation of that. Not to say that's a huge barrier of entry, but um, still, like, what's the differentiation? What is the offering I could bring to that vehicle or that channel? And I until I'm comfortable with what I can offer to that, I don't think I'd do it. You know, um, I feel like it'll come to me as I get deeper into it. Because again, I'm still like dusting off the rust here and getting like back into it. I'm hitting it hard, but I'm still a little rusty. So yeah, that'll come. But
Dude, it's exciting. Just also, I have mad respect for you for taking that huge change that you took, and like a sideways step that financially sets you back, and that whole process. Yeah, that was a fucking really cool, really brave, self-backed thing to do.
thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It's like, yeah, it's honestly, it kind of fucked me hard a little bit, but like, I'm back to a pretty like a nice space where my at least my head's above water.
Yeah,
But geez, like it got a little hairy for a second there.
got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Hey, got to take some
That's it,
risks.
man. That's literally it, bro. But yeah, dude. Oh, it's so good catching up with you, man.
Likewise.
Yeah, let's shorten the gap if we can for the next
Sounds
one.
good. Sounds good, man. I'm keen. I'm down for that.
Awesome, awesome, dude. And so good to hear that you're in a good place now as well, man.
Yeah, heaps of growth, and that's good. So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, man. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for
Yeah, dude.
thanks for teeing it up with me.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to it. I appreciate the hell out of it, man. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a few nuggets here that we can extract.
Yes, for sure,
I'll
dude.
make sure I send it out to you too.
All right,
All right,
appreciate
man.
it, man.
You too, brother. I'll speak to you soon.
Take it easy.
You too.
See you, bro.